abandoned. Oh hey guys, what's up? I know it's been quite some time since I've uploaded on this channel. I think it's actually been probably like a month. I don't even know, to be honest with you. The reason why that is because I've been really busy producing a lot of content for the other channel, Exploring with Angelo. So as some of you might know, in case you do follow my social medias, which will be here, here, and here, I've been doing a lot of traveling. I actually recently went to Montreal, Quebec, Ottawa, Canada, as well as Detroit, which is exactly what we're here to talk about. So when it comes to Detroit, obviously, I think everybody has a certain amount of expectations as to exactly what it is that they're going to see, what they're going to experience. In my honest opinion, you know, as I've been told ever since I was a kid, I think everybody kind of thinks that you're literally walking into 8 Mile. But to be honest with you, not every area in Detroit is exactly like that. But there are some areas that are unreal. So the reason why I went to Detroit in the first place was because I'm an urban explorer. We like checking out abandoned places. Myself personally, I like doing a lot of paranormal locations and doing that sort of thing as well. But of course, the expectation with Detroit, you hear a lot of it, that they have a lot of abandoned neighborhoods, tons of locations everywhere. So of course I did a lot of research before going there, and there's literally like tons of abandoned schools and hospitals, factories, and to be honest, like homes galore, abandoned houses literally everywhere. But first off, we're going to talk about, again, those expectations. Now, I think a lot of people kind of envision, you know, a lot of gangs, I guess, kind of all over the place, like as if somebody's going to come up to you and rob you at every single point of, you know, at any point pretty much while walking around throughout Detroit. And that's sort of what I expected, I guess. It's not really what I got, but we'll get to that part a little later on. But here's just a little bit of a glimpse of what it is that we actually experienced going there. This specific area of Detroit is known as Highland Park, which was once a sprawling neighborhood that was growing at a massive rate back in the early 1900s. When the automobile industry came in between 1910 and 1920, the area grew by over 1,000%. Ford Motor Company was a huge part up until the 50s and 60s when they began to cut operations throughout Highland Park. Ford eventually closed their operation there in 1973, leaving the local industrial community in a financial crisis. The last hope was Chrysler, who early in the 1990s moved its operation out of Highland Park. As the financial crisis took its toll, many of the businesses and even schools, hospitals, treatment centers closed its doors. In 2011, Highland Park could no longer even afford to have streetlights, forcing them to remove them in many places throughout. The city advised its residents to even leave their porch lights on in order to deter crime. It's the old school we went into yesterday. All abandoned. Massive school. Got another, what I believe is St. Luke's Treatment Center. Another abandoned building within literally a block of everything else that's abandoned. Like the one remaining school in this area is here. And this used to actually be known as a good area, Highland Park.
It's just, you know,
this was back in like the 20s. This was the up and coming. This area grew so fast.
Yes.
And then like literally just snap of fingers and everything just fell apart. I think we'll go back down that way.
Contrast between where we come from with Halloween, kids and families, and everything we've seen down there, and then you come over here.
Yeah. Okay guys, so we're in a spot known as Highland Park here in Detroit. This is probably one of the worst areas when it comes to abandoned. There's so many buildings. Literally, I'm standing here doing a 360 right now, and every single building is abandoned. It is absolutely insane. Got a building over there, building over here. This is the hospital area, which we were trying to get into, but we're not really having much luck. There's what appears to be an old factory. A high school that we went into just yesterday is up that way. Like, look at all those houses down there. Everything. It's like a wasteland. It's incredible to see. Like, you can even still see the hospital we were just at from here. Right there, that's the top of it. This is the school we did yesterday. Huh? Yeah, go in. If you see anything cool, let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, to do like Detroit properly, you literally would need weeks.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff you could film here.
But it's trying to find things that are actually interesting.
That's true. Like, the stuff that I notice online is a lot of like the historical locations, but you still have like random stuff like this. Like, we don't know what it was, but
Yeah.
it's here. Like, this was probably an apartment building. That's what that looks like.
Yeah.
Even when you start going down the road there, you see literally house after house, an abundance of abandoned neighborhoods. It's insane. This, I'm sure, was an apartment building. The roof even collapsed. Okay, so the thing with this video is that we absolutely don't want to paint Detroit in any sort of negative light. I think most of the people that we came into contact with in terms of the locals, they were really respectful to us. They were really nice, didn't bother us. We didn't run into any sort of bad situations. That doesn't really take away from the crime of Detroit, although statistically Detroit is not the worst city in the United States, but it's also kind of not the best. But like I said, we felt relatively safe. No one bothered us. Some people were curious as to why I was walking around with some big ass camera in my hand. But I just kind of wanted to talk about, you know, the expectations that we had and the things that we saw that were relatively different from what it is that we did expect. So one perfect example is we stopped off at a Burger King. We just kind of had to use the washroom. We were going to buy food, you know. So we kind of walked in. We did not expect this at all. But this Burger King was unlike anything I've ever seen in my entire life. It was literally, you walk in, you're in kind of a room, and then everything that creates the food and you know, the cashier and all that stuff is all literally behind like this bulletproof glass, and it was incredible. Like, I've never ever seen anything like that. We don't have anything like that in Canada, so I thought that was pretty interesting to see. So I was fortunate enough to interact with a homeless man. This situation was kind of interesting. I had seen him the day before. He was there again, sitting literally in the exact same spot on a curb, having a cigarette. I basically grabbed a couple bottles of water out of the trunk and put my camera away, grabbed a couple bucks out of my wallet, walked up to him and said, "Hey, do you want some water?" Of course, he took it. I also offered him the $2 US, and he actually turned down the offer of the money, which was kind of interesting. He said, "I don't really need the money, but I definitely need the water, so thanks." So I don't know, I just thought that was kind of cool, and you could kind of see the hope in these people, right? So that's kind of the point of it. it is. So my friend that I went with, Urbex's mom, aka Beauty and Abandonment, you can find her link on Instagram. I'll leave it also down in the description below so you can see her photos on Instagram. She made a good point that it's pretty visible that you can see a lot of hope throughout the city of Detroit. There's a lot of pride in the city. A lot of times you'll find spray painted walls that say I love Detroit, or they've got certain area codes. And I don't know, I just thought that was kind of cool because you can see that people haven't totally given up on the city. It's not exactly what it used to be. Like I said, you'll find about 50 to 60% of the buildings and the homes in Detroit are completely abandoned. The city is relatively run down depending on which areas you go to. So the one interesting thing is that our hotel wasn't directly in Detroit. It was like kind of on the outskirts. There's a lot of little cities like Dearborn, and I don't even remember what the name of the city was that we stayed in. It wasn't the best area, but it also wasn't the worst area, and it was relatively cheap. So the thing that we found, especially when we first arrived there, we wanted to go out and eat, of course. We wanted to find a decent restaurant. We had no idea where to go, and we started looking up places because my friend only can eat gluten-free. So she's checking on her app, and we found one place that was literally about 12 minutes north of where it was that we were. And we thought that we were going to kind of run into like some rundown restaurant. There might be like some pretty rough looking people in this place. When we got there, we were completely taken by surprise because we ended up in this strip of like all these restaurants, and it seemed like a really nice town. Like it was very well maintained. Everybody, you know, was wearing decent clothes, business people, families, that sort of thing. So we were like really confused. We were like, whoa, where are we right now? Completely different from being in Detroit. And it was literally, like I said, just a few kilometers away. It was a 12-minute drive from where we were staying. But you know what? She actually messaged me and told me something. She said, I feel as though people really hope the city will be rebuilt, and I think it's slowly happening, but it will take time. In her exact words, she said, but when and how could Detroit be rebuilt? Which is very true. When you have that many buildings, and I think that's one question people have in terms of the abandoned in Detroit, is how do you rebuild a city like that? It's going to take so long because when you've got 50 to 60% of all the buildings that are all just crumbling apart, it's going to take a serious amount of time, money, resources, all that stuff to tear those down and start from scratch. So we're probably talking like 20, 30, 40 years, maybe even longer. It all depends. The reason we wanted to make this trip was to see the historical aspect of the city and more so to that which has been left behind. We did several specific locations such as Cooley High School, Highland Park College, St. Margaret Mary's Church, Fisher Body Plant, and a super creepy hospital. And we thought each location was incredible in its own way. And the cool thing is I individually documented those for their own videos on my second channel. I will put all the links to every single episode of my other channel, so that way if you do want to see what those locations look like, they were like totally epic, you can definitely check those down in the description below. So this is where I'm going to end this video off. If you're new here, subscribe, turn notifications on, put a like on the video as it really helps out. And honestly, all I wanted to really say was this was just to document exactly what it is that we saw, what we felt when we went there, and what I did see was a former great city of Detroit, basically what was, what's been lost, and I did see potential. I think that Detroit could definitely become another great city once again.